I still remember that trip to Miami with my best friend Jessica as if it happened just yesterday. At the time, I was only a few years into teaching foreign languages, working hard, but quietly yearning for something more than lesson plans, grading, and the predictable rhythm of school life. Jessica had convinced me that a little sun and salt water would do me good. And she was right. Miami greeted us with warm ocean breezes, music spilling from every bar along Ocean Drive, and the endless crash of waves that made the whole city feel alive. It was like stepping into a dream, a place where anything could begin. One night, we joined a crowd on the beach for a cultural festival. Music pulsed through the humid air, drums, guitars, voices singing in languages I only half understood but felt deep in my bones. People danced barefoot in the sand, laughter mingling with the sound of the tide. Jessica grabbed my hand and pulled me into the throng. At first I hesitated, then I let go of my shyness and moved with the rhythm. And that's when I noticed him, Nathan Harris. Our eyes met across the circle of dancers, and suddenly the noise of the world seemed to fall away, leaving just the two of us. Nathan pushed through the crowd with an easy smile and introduced himself with a kind of confidence that made it feel like we had known each other forever. There was no awkward small talk, no forced conversation. We simply clicked. From that night on, we were inseparable. We explored Miami together, late night walks along the shore, sitting on the pier eating street food, talking about our dreams as if the future belonged to us. Nathan told me about his work in business, about how he specialized in rescuing failing companies and turning them around. He spoke with such focus, such certainty that I believed he could do anything. And when he looked at me, it was as though he saw me as his equal, not just a girl on vacation, but someone who could stand beside him. When the trip ended, I expected our story to fade the way most holiday romances do. But fate had other plans. At the airport, as we said goodbye, we discovered that we both lived not just in the same state, but in the very same city, Seattle. I laughed in disbelief. Jessica teased me that destiny was practically shouting in my ear, and maybe it was back home. Nathan and I picked up exactly where we left off. We went on real dates, rainy morning coffee shop visits, cozy dinners in little restaurants where we lingered long after the plates were cleared. Everything between us felt effortless, as though we had known each other for years instead of weeks. There were no games, no doubts. He would call me late at night just to hear my voice, and I'd find myself smiling into the darkness, certain that this was love. It didn't take Nathan long to propose. Looking back, I realize how quickly we rushed into marriage, but at the time it felt perfect, almost inevitable. People talk about soulmates as if they are rare and fragile, but with Nathan, I felt like I had truly found mine. We didn't need time to test or question it. We simply believed in what we felt, and so just a few months after Miami, I stood before him saying, I do, convinced that I had stepped into the life I was always meant to have. When we returned to Seattle as husband and wife, we threw ourselves into building a life together from the ground up. Our first step was buying a place of our own. It wasn't easy. The apartment we chose was beautiful, modern, with tall windows overlooking the city, but it came with a mortgage that felt enormous compared to our combined salaries. Still, Nathan was confident. He had already made a name for himself as a crisis manager, the man companies called when everything was falling apart. His income was high, his reputation growing, and he believed we could handle the weight of the loan. I was still teaching at a private school. My paycheck was modest compared to his, but it mattered deeply to me to contribute, to be a partner, not just a bystander in the life we were building. I cut corners wherever I could, cooked at home, skipped little indulgences, and reminded myself that it was all temporary, that soon we'd be free of debt and living the life we had dreamed about. There was comfort in the rhythm of it, Nathan putting most of his paycheck straight into the mortgage, me covering groceries and utilities. We were a team, and every sacrifice felt shared. Those first years were filled with small, tender joys. Evenings spent curled up on the couch with books in our laps, Nathan glancing over just to smile at me. Rainy weekends baking together, the apartment filling with the smell of cinnamon. Late night conversations about the future, whispering about the sound of little feet one day running across the hardwood floors. Sometimes he would pull me close and promise that one day we would have it all: freedom, security, a family. And I believed him with my whole heart. When we finally made the last mortgage payment, we threw a housewarming party that doubled as a victory celebration. Friends filled every corner of our apartment, laughter and clinking glasses spilling into the night. Jessica teased me about officially being a grown-up homeowner, and Nathan played the perfect host, moving through the rooms with an easy confidence that made everyone feel welcome. Music played. Someone started silly party games. I remember feeling so happy, so certain that we had done everything right. I drank more than usual that night, carried away by the joy of it all. At some point, Nathan handed me a small stack of papers. Just forms from the building management, he said lightly, something about utilities, repairs, insurance. I laughed, tipsy and carefree, and signed without reading. There was a man in a suit standing nearby, introduced as a notary. I barely paid attention. Jessica joked that I was probably signing away my life, and we all laughed. The moment slipped past, just another blur in an evening full of celebration. When the last guest left, Nathan and I collapsed onto the couch, exhausted but glowing with happiness. I looked around our apartment and felt nothing but pride. This was our place, our future, the foundation for everything we were about to build together. I leaned against his shoulder, believing wholeheartedly in the promise of our marriage. And yet, somewhere deep inside, there was the faintest trace of unease, a whisper I couldn't quite hear. I brushed it away. After all, what could possibly go wrong when love and trust felt this strong? At first, life in our new apartment felt steady and secure. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the rhythm began to change. Nathan's work as a crisis manager became more demanding. He traveled constantly, sometimes gone for days at a time. Even when he was home, he came back late, shoulders tense, phone buzzing with messages he never shared. I told myself it was the price of success, that he was doing it for us, for the future we had dreamed about. I never questioned him. I trusted him completely, but what I didn't know was that his late nights weren't always filled with meetings and reports. Somewhere along the way, Nathan had reconnected with Rebecca Moore, the untouchable queen of his high school. She was polished, magnetic, every detail of her appearance as precise as her perfect smile. She thrived on attention. And Nathan gave it to her freely. What started as an innocent reunion became something more, something that pulled him further from me, from our home, from the life we had built together. I remained oblivious. While he slipped away into Rebecca's orbit, I buried myself in work and self-improvement. Teaching languages was my passion, but I wanted more. I began studying Italian, Spanish, even Greek, imagining the day Nathan and I would walk through Venice's narrow streets, sip coffee in Madrid, stand beneath the blue domes of Santorini. Every late night I spent hunched over flashcards. I told myself I was investing in our shared future, but the contrast between us grew sharper with every passing month. I was pouring my energy into dreams we had built together, while Nathan was quietly dismantling the very foundation of those dreams. He became distant, distracted even when we sat across from each other at dinner. His smile no longer reached his. eyes, and sometimes I caught him staring past me, lost somewhere I could not follow. I tried to ignore the unease, convincing myself every marriage had seasons of distance, that this was just a rough patch. Looking back, the signs were obvious. The phone he no longer left on the counter, the trips that seemed to multiply without clear explanation, but at the time, I told myself the same lie over and over again. Everything was fine. The faint scent of perfume that wasn't mine clung to his jacket once or twice. Each time my stomach tightened, but I silenced the voice that warned me something was wrong. I wanted so badly to believe in us, to believe that the man who had once locked eyes with me on that Miami beach was still the man I had married. I told myself love was stronger than distance, stronger than work, stronger than temptation. All couples go through seasons, I thought. So I kept learning, kept working, kept waiting for the day we would finally live the life we dreamed of. Didn't know then that what I called distance was really the first crack in something that could never be repaired. It happened on an ordinary evening, the kind you never expect to change everything. I had made dinner, roast chicken with garlic potatoes, Nathan's favorite. He sat across from me, unusually quiet, pushing food around his plate. I thought he was tired, worn down from yet another trip. Then he looked up. His eyes were sharp, cold. "Eleanor," he said flatly, "I need to tell you something. I love someone else. I want a divorce." The words hit me like a blade to the chest. For a long moment, I just stared at him, frozen. Inside, I was twisting apart, but outside, I stayed perfectly still. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the glass across the room like in the movies. My own voice sounded far away when I asked how long it had been going on. He shifted, muttering that it didn't matter anymore, but it mattered to me. Every detail, every lie I had swallowed whole. Even then, I surprised myself. I didn't fight him. I didn't beg. It was like a switch flipped inside me, and where my heart had been, there was only ice. I told him quietly that I would pack my things and leave in the morning, but Nathan wasn't finished. He leaned back in his chair, and a cruel little smirk curved his lips. "You should know," he said. "You don't have any rights to the apartment. It's mine alone." I blinked at him, stunned. "What are you talking about? We bought it together. I paid into the mortgage every month." He chuckled, a low, mocking sound that made my skin crawl. "Do you remember that housewarming party? You were drunk, signing all those little forms I handed you. One of them was a waiver. You signed away your share of the apartment. The deed is in my name only." The room spun. My mind clawed back through the memory, the music, the laughter, the champagne. Jessica's teasing voice, "You're signing your life away." I had laughed. I had trusted him, and now I realized I had been tricked in the cruelest way possible. "You can't be serious." I whispered. "Oh, I'm very serious," he said, leaning forward. "You never paid the real bills. Your salary barely covered. Groceries and utilities, pocket change compared to what I brought in. This apartment was always mine. You should be grateful I even let you live here." His words cut deeper than the affair itself. All those nights I had gone without, saved pennies, believed we were building something together, he reduced them to nothing. To him, I was nothing. I felt hollow, like the apartment walls themselves were closing in, spitting me out. It wasn't just that he had chosen another woman. He had stolen the home we had built together, the symbol of every sacrifice we had made. I didn't respond. I didn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. I stood, walked to the bedroom, and began to pack a small suitcase. My hands trembled as I folded clothes, each movement mechanical, detached, as though I were watching someone else live this moment by morning. I was gone. I left behind the furniture we had chosen, the books we had lined on the shelves, the smiling photos from better days. I walked out with nothing but a bag and the bitter taste of betrayal in my mouth. The cab ride to my mother's house was silent, the city lights streaking past like ghosts through my tears. I thought I had known heartbreak before, but this was different. This was devastation. The kind that strips you of your home, your love, your dignity, all in a single blow. When I stepped into my mother's small house, she was already at the door, her arms open and waiting. In that moment, I realized that the life I had known was gone, and all that remained was emptiness. Moving back into her house felt like stepping into someone else's story. It was a small, quiet place, filled with the worn comfort of a woman who had already survived her own share of losses. My mother didn't press me for answers. She simply hugged me tight and let me collapse against her dot. Later that night. I sat at her kitchen table, staring at the chipped floral mug she had placed in front of me. "You're still young, Eleanor," she said softly. "This isn't the end. One day you'll be happy again." Her words were kind, but they slid over me, like water over stone. I nodded, grateful, but the pain was still raw, burning dot at night. I lay awake replaying every moment with Nathan, the Miami beach, the promises he made in Seattle, the betrayal over dinner. I felt like a ghost in my own skin. Still, I kept moving. I went to work, taught my students, smiled when I had to. On the surface, I was fine. Inside, I was in ruins. Jessica refused to let me stay buried in grief. One evening, she appeared at my mother's door, her usual fire in her eyes. "There's this event," she said, almost vibrating with excitement. "A masquerade. Blind dates. All anonymous. Men from everywhere, different cultures, different backgrounds. You'll love it." I shook my head instantly. The last thing I wanted was another man, another chance to be broken. But Jessica wouldn't give up, teasing, persuading, insisting. I needed to take a risk. Then fate intervened. On the night of the masquerade, Jessica came down with a fever so high she could barely stand. "You have to go in my place," she begged. "Everything's already arranged. Don't let my ticket go to waste." Against my better judgment, I agreed. The masquerade was held in a grand hall at the edge of the city, glowing gold in the dark. The moment I stepped inside, I was swallowed by the atmosphere, low music pulsing, chandeliers spilling soft light, masks glittering as guests whispered and laughed. Waiters drifted past with trays of champagne, and I took one, then another, letting the bubbles dull the sharp edges of my nerves. For a while, I forgot myself. My face was hidden. I wasn't Eleanor, the betrayed wife, anymore. I was just a stranger in a room full of strangers. People leaned close, speaking in Spanish, Italian, Greek, and I answered haltingly, grateful for the languages I had studied. The night spun around me in a haze of music and champagne. Then he appeared. A tall man in a dark mask touched my arm, firm but gentle, and guided me away from the crowd. My pulse quickened, but I didn't resist. We slipped into a smaller, candlelit room where a woman sat behind a desk with papers laid out before her. Before I could ask what was happening, the man handed me a pen. I laughed nervously, thinking it was some sort of game or performance. The words on the page blurred, but I saw a faint emblem in the corner, an official-looking seal, somewhere in my champagne-hazed mind. It felt like part of the theater. So I was signed. Only later would I learn that this was not a game. It was an undercover legal setup, approved by federal investigators. The woman stamped the document, looked up, and said a single word: "Congratulations." I froze. My eyes darted to the man beside me, and for the first time I saw him clearly. His mask was gone. His eyes were dark, steady, unreadable. "Michael DeMeyer," he said quietly, as if the name itself meant something important, and just like that, my shattered life had taken a turn I could never have imagined. When I woke up the next morning, I didn't recognize where I was. Sunlight streamed through tall windows draped with sheer curtains, casting warm gold across a room far too elegant to be mine. A carved dresser stood against the wall, a vase of fresh lily on top. The sheets beneath me smelled faintly of cedar and lavender. Panic shot through me. Where was I? What had I done? Then I heard footsteps. The door opened, and the man from the masquerade stepped inside. His mask was gone now, revealing sharp features and calm, unreadable eyes. He carried a tray with coffee and toast and set it gently on the table before looking at me with a kind of quiet, measured respect. "Good morning, Eleanor," he said. "My name is Michael DeMeyer." I sat up slowly, pulling the blanket tight around me. My voice was raw. "Where am I? What happened last night?" "You're safe," he said quickly, calm but firm. "This is a private estate outside the city. And as for last night, things didn't go exactly as planned." He hesitated, then met my eyes. "The papers you signed, they were real. Legally, you and I are married." The room tilted. I gripped the blanket like it could hold me steady. "Married? That's not possible. It was a masquerade. A game." Michael shook his head. "Not a game. A cover. I'm an undercover officer working with federal investigators on organized financial crime. That masquerade was a sting operation." His voice was steady, too steady for the weight of what he was telling me. "You dragged me into this without asking," I said, my throat tight. His expression softened. "It wasn't supposed to be you. Another woman was meant to sign, but fate had other plans. I shouldn't have let you do it, but it worked. The cover is real now, and it gives us a connection I couldn't fake." I wanted to scream, to walk out, to undo everything about last night. But then he leaned forward, his tone shifting. "Eleanor, this isn't just about the operation. Your ex-husband, Nathan Harris, he's tied to the network we're after. He's not just unfaithful. He's been involved in corporate raids, fraud, deals that destroy families. I need someone who can get close enough for him to slip." The air left my lungs. Nathan, even after destroying me, even after taking my home, he was still casting shadows over my life. Michael's voice was gentler now. "I won't force you, but I believe you're the key to stopping him before more people get hurt." I sat in silence, torn between fury and the faintest flicker of resolve. Part of me wanted to run, to vanish, but another part still raw from Nathan's betrayal felt something else. The chance to face him. The chance to see justice stop. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm. "I'll help you. If Nathan is guilty, I want the truth out. I want him to pay for what he's done." Michael nodded once, his expression unreadable. Then we began. The resort in the Florida Keys looked like paradise at first glance, palm trees swaying, ocean stretching blue and endless, the air thick with salt and hibiscus. But beneath the beauty, tension coiled like a spring. This wasn't a vacation. It was a battlefield dressed in tropical colors. I was there as a translator, officially hired to assist the resort owners, an old family desperate to protect what was theirs. Michael, under his cover, played the quiet facilitator, watching everything. And then there were the others, the predators with perfect smiles. And polished shoes dot when the double doors of the conference hall opened and the group entered, my heart stopped. Nathan Harris walked in, Rebecca on his arm. He looked older somehow, sharper, but carried the same effortless confidence that had once made me believe in him. Rebecca clung to him like a prize, her red dress daring, her laugh loud enough to turn heads. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then his gaze swept the room, landed on me, and froze. He stared like he'd seen a ghost. I had changed since he last saw me. My hair, my posture, my clothes, everything chosen to project the woman I had fought to become. I wasn't the shattered version he'd left behind, I lowered my gaze briefly, then met his eyes again, cool and professional. Inside, my pulse raced. On the outside, I was composed. I introduced myself to the room in flawless Spanish, writing the opening negotiations with a steady voice and a practiced smile. Nathan never looked away. When the meeting broke for recess, I heard him before I saw him. "Eleanor," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Please, I need to talk to you." I turned, expression calm. For a moment, I saw the flicker of the man I'd once loved, but Rebecca's laughter cut through the air, snapping me back to reality. "What could you possibly have to say?" I asked. "Not here," he pleaded. "Just a few minutes, alone." His eyes were restless, almost desperate. I let the silence hang between us until it was heavy enough to make him shift. "Fine," I said at last. "After the session ends, 5 minutes, no more." Relief washed over his face like a man who'd been holding his breath for a year. I turned away before he could speak again, walking back to the owner's table with deliberate calm. Inside I was trembling, not with fear, but anticipation. This was the moment Michael had prepared me for. The past and present were colliding, and I was no longer powerless. For the first time, Nathan needed something from me, and I planned to use it. The pier stretched into the night, the boards slick with salt and moonlight. I stood waiting, arms folded, the ocean breeze cool against my skin. My heart was steady now, even knowing Michael and his team were somewhere in the shadows, watching. This wasn't just a meeting, Dot, it was the moment everything shifted. Nathan arrived late, his footsteps uneven, his shoulders bowed as if the weight of his choices had finally broken him. When he saw me standing there, something inside him cracked. He stumbled forward, then dropped to his knees on the damp planks of the pier. "Eleanor," he choked, his voice raw. "I was a fool. I lost the only thing that ever mattered. Please. Forgive me. Let me make it right. Come back to me." Tears clung to his lashes as he reached for me, as though he could hold me there, tether me to his regret. For a moment, I let silence stretch between us. I wanted him to feel it, the distance, the damage, the hollow space he had carved into my life. When I finally spoke, my voice was cool, controlled. "You hurt me more than anyone ever could, Nathan. Words can't undo that. If you want me to believe you, if you want me to even consider forgiveness, prove it. Tell me everything. No more secrets, no more lies." Desperation twisted his face. "Anything," he whispered hoarsely. "I'll tell you anything." I reached for my phone, setting it casually on the railing, my hand covering the tiny red light of the recording app. Then I turned back to him, softening my expression just enough to let him believe I wanted to hear the truth. And then he talked Dot at first. It came in fragments, names of companies, shady partners, cryptic hints. But soon the dam broke. Everything spilled out. The raider schemes, the fraud, the deliberate destruction of small businesses so his associates could buy them for scraps. He named investors, shell corporations, offshore accounts. His voice shook, but he didn't stop. It was as though pouring it all out might cleanse him, might earn him one last chance. I nodded occasionally, murmuring soft encouragements, forcing myself to appear moved. Inside, my stomach turned at every word. Behind us, in the shadows, Michael and his team listened through the wire. Each name, each confession was another nail in Nathan's coffin. When he finally stopped, his face was streaked with tears. He reached for my hand. "Now you know," he said, trembling. "Now you can believe me. We can start over, just say the word." I withdrew my hand slowly. "Thank you for telling me, Nathan, but you're mistaken. I didn't come here to start over. I came here to end this." His face twisted in confusion, and before he could speak, Michael stepped from the darkness, agents close behind. Nathan's eyes widened as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. He shouted, fought, cursed swearing it was all a mistake. But when his gaze found mine, horror dawned. "It was you," he spat. "You did this to me." I didn't flinch. "No, Nathan, you did this to yourself." This wasn't revenge. This was the truth. As they dragged him away, I felt something I hadn't felt in years' freedom. Days later, the news came. Nathan Harris had suffered a fatal heart attack in jail, his body giving out before the trial could begin. The court never heard his confession, but the evidence had already been submitted. His name would forever be tied to the destruction he caused. Rebecca disappeared almost instantly, leaving nothing behind but the bitter echo of her laughter. I should have felt triumphant, and in a way I did. Justice had been served. His empire had crumbled, but the victory felt hollow, sharp-edged. The man who had once been my whole world was gone, undone by his own hands. Days later, I stood on that same pier, the wind fierce, the salt stinging my lips. It was over. The chapter of Nathan Harris had finally closed. And for the first time, I let myself imagine what life might look like without his shadow hanging over me. The silence he left behind was deafening, but for the first time, it felt like a beginning. Went back to teaching, clinging to the comfort of simple routines. But the emptiness lingered like a shadow that refused to leave. That was when Michael appeared at my door, a suitcase in hand and a quiet resolve in his eyes. "They've given me extended leave," he said. "Come with me to Turkey. Meet my family, see where I come from." For a moment I froze. Travel had always been a dream I once wove with Nathan, a dream that had turned to ash. But Michael's gaze held no deceit, no hidden agenda. Only patience. Only hope. So I said yes. The journey felt like stepping into a world I had only ever imagined. The turquoise waters of the Aegean stretched endlessly, sunlight dancing on the waves. We wandered through markets alive with color, the air rich with spices, coffee, and laughter. In quiet villages, women pressed warm bread into our hands. Their kindness so simple and genuine, it brought tears to my eyes. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't waiting for the floor to fall out from under me. I felt safe. I felt alive. Meeting Michael's family was like stepping into a story I didn't know I had been waiting to live. His mother embraced me as though she had been expecting me all along. His cousins teased him mercilessly, pulling me into their laughter until I laughed too, really laughed, for the first time in years. In their home, filled with voices and warmth, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel in so long. Belonging. Evening, Michael and I walked along the shore as the sun melted into the horizon, painting the sky gold and rose. The water lapped gently at our feet. The world seemed to hold its breath. Michael stopped, turning to face me. For the first time since that strange night at the masquerade, his voice trembled. "Eleanor," he said softly. "What began as a cover became something real. I love you, not as part of an operation, not because of what you could do for me, but because of who you are. I don't want to hide behind papers or accidents anymore. I want this to be real. Will you marry me for real this time?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. Memories surged through me. Miami, the betrayal, the nights I thought I would never breathe again. And yet, standing there with Michael, I understood something. Love isn't about fate sweeping you off your feet. It's about someone choosing you every single day with honesty and devotion. I smiled through my tears. "Yes," I whispered. "This time, yes." Relief and joy broke across his face as he pulled me into his arms. Behind us, the horizon stretched wide and endless, the sea reflecting a future that was finally mine. And in that moment, I knew the door to my past was closed. I had stepped fully into the life I was meant to live, a life where love wasn't a lie, but a gift. A new chapter had begun, and for the first time in a very long time, it was filled with hope.